I'm Catherine Ross, and I'm here live from the floor of the NYSE with Jim Cramer. Jim, what's top of mind for you this morning?
What a mess. You've got companies that are directly impacted. Carnival Cruise, great company. You have companies that are, of course I'm talking about the coronavirus. You have other companies that are trading with the expectation that maybe things are going to get better very quickly. You have lots of people. We spoke to Secretary of Health and Human Services, the guy who's running the task force, and he was saying, listen, this is, let's keep it in perspective, just another flu, okay? Which means that he's been through all of them. He's been through SARS. We can talk about that. But he made me feel like, look, get used to it. You're going to live with it. They're going to try to cut down people who come in. He would not agree to stopping flights, which I think is a mistake, because if I worked for United, I certainly would like to not have to be on that plane. But if I don't show, I'm going to be fired. It would have been good just to be treating the employees of these airlines. I would have preferred him to do that. I am confident that something will, that we'll find something, but I'm also confident that if we don't, the economy is going to go retreat very quickly.
Now, I want to...
Binary, very binary.
Based on Tesla's earnings last night, now they had stellar earnings, they beat expectations, but on the call, CFO Zach Kirkhorn did make a mention of the coronavirus and did say that there's a possibility that it could impact Tesla.
Well,
but
I mean, I think that Tesla probably... Tesla has tremendous demand. Those cars are going to get bought. The man is a genius, and I would just say that of the companies that I'm worried about, he's probably the least.
So the coronavirus isn't going to pump the brakes on Tesla's stock anytime soon?
I would think that the coronavirus would impact Bristol Myers more because maybe people can go to work. Look, one of the things that was on that call that was so great at the very beginning was that Musk said, we don't have to advertise. Our best advertisement, the cars on the road. Well, when you watch the big game this weekend, what you're going to see is ad after ad for car companies. Remember, this man does not need to advertise. What does that tell you about the demand? It's off the charts. Would SARS even stop this one? SARS, again, being more lethal? Nothing. Right now, no. People want these cars worldwide. I think it's so amazing that he's going. Think about what he's doing in Berlin. He went to a place that no one wanted to build anything because they're unexploded ordnance from the big week when we bombed Berlin, and we did bomb them several times. But what happens is that he took 7 unexploded bombs out. He's going to build that plant. I bet he's going to use everything he learned to build the other plant in China 10 months. Maybe builds it shorter. And this is in the heart of German engineering. And this is American engineering. Remember, he's American. And it's a great testament to the country. And I think that I agree with President Trump that he is a treasure. Hate him or like him, Trump did acknowledge the greatness of this man. He's great.
Jim, one thing that I really noticed on the call last night, and I was live tweeting it for TheStreet, was how relaxed he sounded.
I know. Well, see, it's like me being Jimmy Chill. I mean, remember, he did say at one point that the analysts may not be as good as the retail investors who like the car.
And they kind of made fun of the analysts.
Yeah, but he wasn't, let's say, poisonous. He was not erratic. See, he's no longer erratic, and he's no longer provoking the SEC. He's just making cars and talking about batteries. And so I mean, to the people who say, well, Jim, you're new to this or whatever, and I'm Jimmy Chill. I'm not going to say how I feel about you. I would point out that he's a different guy. He's delightful. He's a delightful guy. He's the guy you want to meet now. And you don't want he's not going to excoriate you just because you're from Wall Street.
So let's switch gears and let's talk about a CEO that isn't in everyone's favor, and that's Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's CEO. And last night,
we own this for your charitable trust. The stock spiked because of Raymond James doing a piece that was on the same, right in front of the numbers, telling you the numbers are going to be great. So I know that was ill-advised. Instagram remains the best way to advertise. They did not emphasize Instagram at all. As a matter of fact, they accentuated the negative and didn't focus on the positive. And they talked about all the money has to be spent. At one point, there's a bizarre moment where Mark talks about how he doesn't want to be liked anymore. And sometimes I wish Mark would just call me, and I would tell him there's another way to do it. The call was not a good one. They're spending more money than we'd like. I come back, I step away, and I say, what I wouldn't do to have that business. And they're going to get the stuff right when it comes to free speech versus targeted ads. They will get it right. They just need to bring in someone who is really kind of not part of the culture and just say, okay, listen, here's what's going to be, maybe put it on the board. You get Ted Wells from Paul Weiss, and Ted, I think he's the finest lawyer in the country. You get Ted to come in, and Ted goes over what the rules are, and then Mark says, okay, I'm going to obey Ted. I wish I could, again, just suggest bring in Ted Wells, because you will you will have this issue vetted in a way that you will not have to address it constantly. That's the goal, is to put it behind you. And I didn't feel they put it behind you at all.
So for anyone who missed it, Zuckerberg did say that Facebook's goal is not to be liked at this point. But Jim,
it was totally gratuitous. And look, I mean, they're doing great things. I struggle. I struggle because that conference call could have been done another way. You know, my wife always says retire and orchestrate conference calls, because I spend so much time reviewing them as if they're plays. And this one, he turned it, you know, when Shakespeare wrote comedies, they weren't funny, okay? They're not, it's just that they weren't tragedies. But he made it, I don't know, did you ever study? I mean, I took a lot of Shakespeare.
I also had to learn a lot about Shakespeare.
Okay, so he made it so it was a tragedy, and he should have made it so it was a comedy. But a comedy like a Shakespeare comedy, meaning it's not like slapstick, you know? And he didn't do that. And so now when we write the history, which is, of course, my favorites, I love the histories, he made it, this was a misstep, the call, and I just wish that he had been a little more positive about Instagram and how it's the most effective force to get customers in the world.
So let's say, let's put ourselves in this scenario. Let's say that you did get the opportunity to sit down with Mark and the rest of Facebook's team. Now, if Coach Cramer were to coach them and to say, this is how I would be more transparent.
No, go ahead.
How would Coach Cramer tell them to be more transparent without?
No, it's not transparency. They were very transparent here. It's the notion of empowerment, that what you want to do is explain what's good about Facebook. The best defense is offense, okay? So you need to be, you mentioned this, I don't know if he's that much of a sports fan, but you need to be Andy Reid, okay? He's just going to flood the zone with offense, and then he has a defense that's okay. And you come away and say, well, listen, offense is a winner, he's playing some D. Now, I know they feel like, look, we've got to address all these issues, but they have to address it within the confines. This is what I would tell him. Wow, he really should have called me. I'd say, look, let's do this conference call in two parts. The first part is we say we're really incredibly cognizant of what people are saying about our policy, targeted ads. We do have to spend more, but we've brought in a man who was brought in by Fox when Fox had problems, a man who has the NFL's lawyer. We've brought in Ted Wells, and Ted Wells is examining what would be best practices, and then we're going to put them through. And our practices, like Boeing is saying now in terms of transparency, our practices will be the best in the industry. Whatever's the best, and it's going to be arrived at independently using Ted Wells and Paul Weiss, which is what you do if you want to make sure that the chips may fall. Okay, so that's part one. You bring in that. Part two is I want to talk about empowerment. I want to talk about businesses. I might even bring on someone who was able to create a business, who was a vet. Someone who's divorced, a spouse who's divorced who was trying to figure out how to build a business. I'd be upbeat. See, I would make it so that the arc of it would be we deal with the stuff that people don't like, and he didn't need to say the stuff about being like we don't care about that. We want to be able to say best practices, a la Calhoun and Craig Smith from Boeing, and then we do that. Okay, so that's the tragedy, and then we go to the comedy part, and the comedy part, again, comedy in the Shakespearean form, which is not ha-ha, but the comedy part where he talks about the great empowerment and how people are using Instagram to build businesses worldwide. and they do it, and they have all the different forms of Facebook that they're providing, and so Facebook's going to be like David Abney from United Parcel, going to spend a lot of money how to help small businesses learn how to use Instagram to grow. And then you finish in the arc by talking about how you never meant to do a lot of this. You tack it head on. You, Sacha Cohen, okay? You attack head on what he says about taking an ad from Goebbels or Hitler. I don't want him to use those names because we believe in principles that you don't invoke the Nazis, but say some people have invoked historical figures who we find abhorrent and reprehensible to the point that it's disgraceful that they're used in connection with us. But we are going to make sure that our critics who say that we're cancer, who say that we take an ad from spot from Hitler, we are going to them and we are saying, we hear you, we understand how you feel, we understand that you have valid points, and that's again why we brought in an outside group to look at the best practices so that when we're done, you're going to say, you know what? They change their ways, and that's what they have to do. And they don't owe me a cent for what I think is probably about $1 billion worth of information just came. That's what they have to do.
So one thing that I just heard, so let me back up. We've been working together for well over a year now. And this time last year, if I remember correctly, we were talking Tesla and what Elon Musk needed to do on his conference calls.
I told him what to do.
Exactly.
No,
yes, Coach Cramer stepped in.
But my friend Jim Stewart talked to him, and the idea there was that make cars, shut up, get off of Twitter, don't be erratic. You'll be our hero if you just make cars and speak on the conference call and stop picking at the SEC. And he did all of that. Now, no hubris here. I don't know if he ever heard me. I know I've only met him once. I can't say he was complimentary. But that's okay. Not everybody can like you. But I do think that he did. He either independently arrived at my plan or he looked at my plan. I would say independent because I don't have that level of hubris, but I do think that, although of course I have a lot of hubris, I do think that if Mark were to do my plan, it might short-term hurt their profitability, but long-term make them into the company that they deserve to be given how smart he is. So I do hope that he listens, watches, because I think he's not who people say he is.
So let's say that Mark listens to Coach Cramer's plan. What else could he learn about from Elon Musk?
Well, put your head down. Deliver a product that everybody loves because he can love it. If there are flaws, address the flaws. And talk about how you want to be the best there is to the point where if it hurts profitability, like Satya Nadella, then let it be heard. I don't care if he's liked or disliked, okay? What I care about is that he offers the best product for the customer, for all customers, and he does it with best practices. And sometimes you need to do best practices, you have to get someone from the outside. But I'm quite confident that if he did what I said, that the stock would be at 300, not 200.
All right, Mark Zuckerberg.
That's about where it is. Look, I've been doing this stuff since time immemorial, since before the conference calls, and I will have some hubris here. He should listen to me. Short term, it would hurt, but Mark should listen because my plan's a good one.
Sounds like Mark Zuckerberg needs to sit down and listen to Coach Cramer's game plan here.
Well,
so, Jim,
I'm sure he's probably a nice guy at some level. He says he doesn't want to be liked, but
even nice guys can learn.
Look, maybe I sent him a Confessions of a Street Addict so he can see exactly how suboptimal I was. I'm choosing my words carefully.
So, Jim, before we go, let's talk about Coca-Cola, which also reported earnings
James
this morning.
Did such a good job. I mean, James and I talked a lot about sustainability and about how Sweden, by the way, is now closed loop with plastic bottles, and the goal is to make it so everybody is. And if he did that, the stock goes to 70. Just because it would be ESG friendly. No, I'm just kidding. Probably get a few points, but James delivered 6% growth, organic growth. He's done it through ingenuity. Coke Zero is really selling well. He's got a new orange drink, by the way. It sounds very good. Distribution's great. He is. He's got the zeitgeist. And he's truly an enjoyable person. I know that shouldn't matter versus, say, what we were talking about with Zuckerberg, but it really does matter in the scheme of things because he loves his product. He loves it. I mean, when he goes to Bar San Miguel, he's proud that we serve Mexican Coke. And when he saw that we were out of Topo Chico, I excoriated him because Topo Chico, we can mark up a lot at Bar San Miguel, and that Topo Chico is something that he bought when he ran Coca-Cola in Mexico. He's a visionary. He's a youthful go-getter. And a guy who I think is turning that company from a no to slow growth company to a nice growth company. I remember when I was at Goldman Sachs how you always recommended that stock. Why? Because you never got hurt. And then Warren Buffett took a big stake. But in the last few years, you've underperformed. And I think that this stock is now going to be able to be on the path of outperformance because of James and how well he's doing.
But let's take this from a millennial angle, because tomorrow we're going to release our next 5 stocks in our Cult Stock Index. So I'm wondering, based on Coca-Cola's earnings this morning, what would it take to get it in the top 5 of Robinhood's top stocks?
No, I can't. It would take them buying all the plastic. And they don't do that. I did suggest that they come up with some novel ways to force us to recycle. I know that someone tried to give me a citizen's arrest ticket in Berlin when I put a green bottle and a brown bottle receptacle. I didn't know. I thought that all bottles is glass. But they got to do something before it's going to be in that top group.
All right, Jim, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Guys, thanks for watching. We are now heading over to our Action Alerts Plus daily rundown show over on actionalertsplus.com. We've got a lot of earnings to go over. We had Lam Research, we had Microsoft, and of course we had Facebook, so we got to talk more about that. So head on over to actionalertsplus.com. I'm Catherine Ross, and we'll see you tomorrow.